Hey there, everyone. I'm Samuel Johnson, and welcome to the final episode of the Phantom Perspectives. And before we start, I'd like to give some apologies in advance. For starters, I'm doing this during we're about where I'm filming this is going to be kind of hit by a thunderstorm later, so you may hear some booming, every here and there. So there's nothing I can do about that. Second, I am sweating like a pig right now because it is bleeping hot over here. So I have my fan on over there in the corner, so you might end up hearing that during this. And finally, my dog is here. He might go in and out, so you can kind of expect that and me reacting to that. And again, I'm doing this late and I'm using my phone as a light, so apologies, but that's kind of how it's going to be for this one. It's very low quality, but I'm sweating, but I'm hot, and the sound. I'm just sorry, I really am. But with that out of the way, today we're going to be discussing episode 50 of Danny Phantom / the final episode of the series, Phantom Planet. And like most of season 3, I went into this episode kind of blind. I had read up about this episode. I even read a summary of some of the plot. But I, honest to God, never sat down and watched it. But I have seen a lot of reactions to it, and straight to the point, people hate this episode. People just hate this finale. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. Like I was saying, people pretty much hate this finale, and honestly, after watching it, I can kind of see why. But before we get into that, let's get into the plot and all the problems that come with that. For starters, where it all begins. In this case, it all begins out in space. Vlad has a satellite in space around the rings of Saturn, and the satellite is collecting samples of this asteroid, which, for the sake of everything, I'm just going to call it the disasteroid because that's what it's eventually called. It's a giant green glowing asteroid that... Hold on a second. Sorry again, technical stuff. Anyways, I was saying, it's a giant green glowing asteroid that's shaped like a skull. And Vlad has a satellite up there that's pretty much collecting samples of it and examining it. Pretty much, from what we learned of the sample, from what sample that's taken, I forgot what it was called, but essentially this asteroid is made up of a mineral that is essentially like ghost kryptonite. If any ghosts were to come in contact with this stuff, it essentially would hurt them / kill them. As such, they can't really do anything. As such, it could be a useful weapon for capturing ghosts, but before Vlad can even get these results, because he wasn't there at the time of this discovery, his holograms of Maddie were doing the research. Vlad flies in from a ghost portal, and he has the Infamap. Apparently, he took out Frostbite and grabbed the map. But shortly after doing that, Danny, Sam, and Tucker fly in the Spectre Speeder, and apparently this episode answers the question that Tim posited all the way back in the first episode of this vlog. Apparently, in space, ghosts need helmets. I think. We'll probably get that. That's probably going to get dashed later. Maybe they just think they need them. I don't know. But Danny ends up fighting Vlad to get the Infamap back, but in the process, his satellite is damaged and starts to overheat because apparently you can have fire in space. But Danny, Sam, and Tucker manage to escape with the Infamap while the satellite explodes, and Vlad pretty much decides that he needs to take care of Danny once and for all. But when the satellite explodes, it causes the disasteroid to start to get blasted away, and we'll see where it's headed later, but later on, Danny, Sam, and Tucker are walking around, and Danny says they're gonna have to return that to Frostbite at some point. But while they're walking around, suddenly Danny's ghost sense goes off, and we see Technus robbing a tech store, and so Danny goes to fight him. But while Danny's fighting him, suddenly a group of new ghost hunters appears. These rad teens in these red jumpsuits who with all this technology that's specifically designed to hunt ghosts appears and actually manages to apprehend Technus. These are called These guys are called the Masters Blasters, and they're pretty much Vlad pretty much created them as a means of revenge to try and make Danny obsolete, because these guys are pretty much equipped with all the stuff that they would need to take down ghosts, and pretty much they're supposed to be just better than Danny in every way. Danny, of course, thinks that this is a load of trite, but Sam thinks that if he wants to beat Masters Blasters, then all he has to do is just hunt ghosts better, and I admit that's not really advice. It's just like saying do it better than them, which I think kind of went without saying, and it's actually kind of a stupid plan, in all honesty. I mean, they know Vlad made these guys to try and get to Danny, so he must have some plan in mind, so I don't know. So, but whatever. Danny tries to do what Sam suggested and tries fighting ghosts, but each time he gets one-upped, but each time the ghost gets the better of him, and the blasters come in and pretty much one-up him by defeating the ghost. Even big, powerful ones like Undergrowth are just taken out very easily by these guys. Or Vortex. Freaking Vortex. The ghost that can control the weather. Yeah, they're just all child's play to them. And soon, pretty much because the blasters are pretty much better than than Danny, everyone starts loving them and pretty much shaming Danny Phantom, to which I respond with, why? I mean, yeah, they're doing good. They should be celebrated. They're helping people. Congrats. But Danny Phantom saved the world. Saved Amity Park many times. I mean, yeah, this is cool, and yeah, he's kind of gotten humiliated, but the public pretty much thinks, oh, he's a nuisance because he just gets in the blaster's way. Bull crap. He was barely in their way. Yeah, I'll admit, he got curb stomped those times, but even then, he still did a lot. Okay, I'm sorry, but this is getting to me. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. I was kind of getting annoyed by how the light just... Ugh, no, I'm sorry. This is what happens when you have a low budget show and really don't know what else to do with it. But anyways, I was saying, Danny for some reason is being treated like he's a nuisance, that he's a problem now. He's only getting away with the real ghost hunters, and Amity Park turns on him quick. Like, this kid and his mom are talking about how they used to love Danny, but these guys are so much cooler now, so he can just go jump off a ditch, which... F you! Just F you! That's the stupidest thing ever! Like, why are you turning on him? Just because these cooler guys came about? Okay, fine. They're good ghost hunters. That doesn't mean that all Danny's accomplishments are suddenly negated. Like, what? Why? And the stupidest part? Danny lets that get to him. He instead thinks, oh man, starts thinking he's useless. That these ghost hunters are better than him. That he really does only just get in the way. Which, I'm sorry to say, I don't buy. And he even tries to get his edge back, quote unquote, by taking out a ghost, which really turns out to be a balloon, and it was so obviously a balloon. I'm surprised he made the mistake. And that somehow makes everyone turn against him even more, which I think is just still stupid. And he seriously thinks that now his ghost powers are just a problem. To which I respond with, why? He has saved many people, this entire town, a whole dimension of ghosts, and yet, just because these new people come around and Amity Park turned on him, he suddenly thinks, oh, maybe I shouldn't be a ghost hunter anymore. Bull crap. And what makes it even stupider is that Danny starts to consider that maybe he should get rid of his ghost powers. I'm not joking. It's so fickle and dumb. And and honestly, I think the biggest problem, and I can't help but think of an earlier episode when it comes to this. Like, I remember back in season 1 with Walker, how he had his whole plan to frame up Danny, make him public enemy number 1. Well, At the end of the episode, he succeeded, and Danny's response, knowing that the public now hated him and wanted to just eradicate him, it was just, I'm just gonna keep doing what I do, regardless of what people think of me. That's a good, that's a nice, strong, good moral center there. And it's kind of like the Spider-Man thing. Like, even though he knows that people hate him, or if he's not as, or if people don't look up to him as much, he does still think it's the right thing to do to help people. And even if even if everyone turns against him, he's still gonna want to help them. But because the tabloids insulted him and these new ghost hunters are doing everything, he suddenly thinks that he's useless? That is stupid. And I think it kind of flies in the face of Danny. Because Danny is a good kid. Yeah, he does have a lot of stupid things and he has his own character faults. But at the end of the day, he is a good kid with a strong moral compass. When he first got his powers, he didn't know what he wanted to do with them. And now, but then when he encountered his first real ghost and his friends are in danger, he realized he wanted to use these powers to help people. That's what he wanted to do. And so, like, for him, it wasn't about the glory. Yeah, it's nice having all that fame, but Danny, from the beginning, wanted to use his powers to help others, regardless of what people thought of him. So, to have him have this conundrum where he suddenly thinks, I don't need that, oh no, that now there are better ghost hunters around, that they don't need him, I think that that's stupid. I think it is the stupidest thing that this show has produced so far. And it has had some moments, but this is just the worst moment. Because Danny is not that kind of character. And again, so the fact that he's even considering giving up his ghost powers, I think, is just dumb. And I know you can make the argument about, oh, his powers have caused so much problems to them. No, they haven't. They've prevented problems. The problems came, if you want to get into it, came from the Fenton portal. If that thing was never there, none of the ghosts or men within it would have gotten out and caused all this havoc around Amity Park and so forth. Or, if you want to get technical, Jack, since he's the one that made it, and he even made the proto-portal that created Plasmus, and we'll get to him later. So, maybe you can blame him. But Danny's powers are not the root of the problem. If anything, they're the solution. Because if it wasn't for Danny, a lot of bad shit would have gone down. And yet, Danny seems to have ignored that. Hell, even when he says this to everybody, that he wants to get rid of his powers, they try to point out to this, but he instead still is mopey. And it's just dumb. What makes it work? But of course, you're kind of wondering, well, how could he get rid of his ghost powers? Well, even if he wanted to get rid of his ghost powers, there's no way how. Well, apparently, there is. There is a way to get rid of his ghost powers. Remember how Danny got his powers by going into the Fenton portal and then turning it on? Well, apparently, it can be done in reverse. Because around this time, Jack is downgrading the Fenton portal Model 1 because he wants to give it just a tune-up and just start back on square one and start it and just get everything set up. Apparently, the Fenton portal can download music too, because that's apparently one of the features he wants to put in. But what's strange is that, so when Danny sees this, he thinks maybe he could replicate the experiment that gave him his powers to get rid of them, which, yeah, I don't think that'll work. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, if it was that simple, I'm surprised that Jack in the Plasmus timeline didn't do that. Like, remember in that timeline, the one where Danny went back in time to try and stop Vlad from getting his ghost powers, and then instead altered things so that Jack got hit by the blast from the portal and gave him ghost powers? Remember when Jack said that he spent years trying to find a cure? Apparently all he had to do was just do the thing in reverse, and boom! No more ghost powers. I guess? I mean, I guess you could say he never did that because he never had a portal, but, I mean, he spent years trying to find it. I guess all he had to do was just do it in reverse. Yeah, it's stupid, and what makes it worse, it works. Like at first, Danny is pretty much is still considering doing it, but the blasters but he pretty much clenches it when the blasters attack the Fenton Works because they got reports that there's a ghost, because they're getting reports of of ecto energy source here that they think the Fentons are harboring, which is in this case Danny because he's half ghost. Sorry, I'm very hot. And so Danny decides just to finally say, "Screw it, I'm getting my powers." Now if he wasn't suffering from lazy writing, he would just fly out of Fenton Works and try and come up with a plan to hide from them, or at least go to Vlad and tell him to lay the hell off. Or just do something. But nope, just he activates the portal, gets it all set up, and then goes in, and he turns on the portal while inside it. It caused the whole thing to overload, but it does exactly what he thought it would do. It gets rid of his ghost powers, with the only sign that he had them in the first place being a white streak in his hair. There are times in certain stories where a hero loses their powers. Whether by choice or by outside forces, they suddenly lose their powers. Sometimes it can lead to some good character development. Them having to adapt to being normal while still having that drive, or them finally gaining something that they lost, but because of the time as their hero, they have still changed. They've changed. So, in essence, they could have well-written reasons for why heroes and why they would lose their powers for whatever reason. For them hanging up the cowl, or just wanting to stop, if for their loved ones, or just because things are getting too hard, or just because they think that the world would be better off if they weren't in there, either because they suffered a tragedy. I think this is the laziest way I've seen a hero give up their identity, because because nobody liked him anymore, and because instead of doing the smart thing and trying to think about how to work around it, sorry, Thunder, Danny decided to take the lazy way out, and just decided that the world would be better off without Danny Phantom, just because some other people made him look like an idiot, which I think is dumb, and it is just kind of a slap in the face of the character. I think an example of there is a good example that I can measure up to for a superhero abandoning their alter ego because of something that's happened. It's from the CGI Spider-Man, the new animated series. For those of you who haven't seen it, it was a short-lived CGI series that was loosely based on the Sam Raimi trilogy, or at least the first one, about Peter Parker as Spider-Man. It was I'm not going to get into my thoughts on that, but I watched it, and I actually have seen every episode of it. And that series ended when a pair of villains called the Gaines twins tricked Spider-Man into hurting someone he cared about. Not just emotionally, but physically. They tricked him into pushing someone he cared about off of a building because he thought it was a super criminal, which resulted in her going into a coma that the doctors say she may never awaken from. The end result is that Peter believes that the end result is that Peter is emotionally broken, and he manages to finally defeat and while he does take out the Gaines twins because they're still a problem, he realizes that if he's going to be hurting the people he loves, because this is his fault. Yeah, he was tricked, but he's the one that pushed her off. He thinks that that he doesn't want to keep hurting the people he cares about if it's going to result in this. And so the series ended with him taking the Spider-Man costume and then throwing it into the Hudson River. That, I think, is more emotionally charged because it carries the tragedy of the character and what he did. It's a choice that is not taken lightly, and he doesn't just stop immediately. When he does make the decision early on, but he still knows there's work to be done, so he goes in and so he goes to finish that before he fully abandons the identity altogether. And you can understand his reasoning. Because of him being Spider-Man, he was tricked and he hurt someone he cared about. His reputation is now dragged through the mud, and it's not because someone better came along. It's because of something that he did. And he starts to think that maybe it would be better if it would be better for the people he cared about if he wasn't Spider-Man, so that he couldn't hurt them anymore. It's tragic, but it worked, at least for the context. It was sad. This is just Danny deciding, I'm done. I'm just done. It's him willingly giving up his powers, and he doesn't show any regret that they're gone. He doesn't think about all the people that he could be saving. He just suddenly thinks, I'm human now, guys. Now none of this is my problem anymore. So, at that point, we get a montage. At which point we get a montage of the ghosts various ghosts are causing trouble in Amity Park, and then Master's Blasters, and the Master's Blasters taking care of them, and Danny just sits on the sidelines. It's just kind of dumb. And it's so callous, too. Danny shows no emotion towards seeing these things except, whatever, not my problem anymore. And there have been other times when superheroes have done that, when they realize that they have decided that, again, they can't, that they decided that I have to probably dedicate more time to my personal life than that life. But at the same time, but this feels so wrong for Danny, because Danny has had a good heart, and I understand wanting to have a personal life. In the split personality episode, when Danny split himself in two, he wanted to have a personal life while still being able to fight ghosts, hence why he did the split in the first place. His human half was more callous, of course, because he didn't have to worry about responsibilities, while his ghost half had the more heroic aspects of his personality and wanted to constantly keep fighting. And yes, Danny has had times when he's just wanted to give up. And admittedly, I think if this episode was better written, if he probably would say, if they're not causing problems, then I'm not going to stop them. I'm sorry, hold on a second. Sorry about that. My dog wanted to play, and I thought he needed comfort. But hopefully that's the last interruption for this vlog, because I really want to get this done. And this is, I think, a very big moment. As I said, Danny just becomes so callous after this, and he doesn't even bat an eye. It's actually remarkable how selfish he gets here. Like, there's no remorse for what he did. He just thinks, I'm done. I'm free. I'm good. Hold on a second. My dog's getting on my nerves. I'm sorry. Anyway, as I was saying, because I really want to get through this one, because this is what I'm actually kind of passionate about. There's just no regret. Even when it's said that the Master's Blasters are now charging people to hunt ghosts, Danny doesn't even bat an eye. He thinks his decision was the right one. But it actually takes a talk from Sam, who chews him out, that makes him realize that maybe this was a bad idea. or at the very least gets him out of his selfish streak, as she actually tells him, I'm so sorry about this, but this is the last time, I promise. That is the final interruption. If someone wants to run around again, they can wait. I'm sorry. My dog is really getting my nerves because I really want to finish this. I'm so sorry. Because this moment especially, it gets to me. Because it is like the exact opposite of what Danny is as a character. Danny is not this selfish. The last time we saw this was in that episode where he was in Living Large, where he and his family, where the guys in white bought out Fenton Works, and suddenly they got selfish. And it's just... And I understand wanting a normal life, but again, this wasn't spurred on by him wanting a normal life. It was him deciding that the world didn't need Danny Phantom, and life would be better if Danny Phantom was just cut out of the picture. And again, it's stupid. Actually, if I want to, let's go back to Spider-Man a bit. We have a noble example of them giving up the identity. Now here's a personal one. In this case, in Spider-Man 2, when Peter started losing his powers, he didn't just stop being Spider-Man when he realized his powers were gone. It took him a little while to realize that his power that he kind of did need to dedicate more time to being Peter Parker. Especially when he lost his powers, he realized that it was best, but even when they were gone, he still tried to do good. I'm sorry, my dog is just... I'm sorry. This is the worst time to do this. I really am. Sorry. And I want to finish this! But, as I was saying, this is just gonna be... I'm pretty much just fucked at this point, right? I've pretty much just screwed this up, haven't I? I'm sorry. I really am. But as I was saying... But even then, he still wanted to do good. When he saw people in danger, he tried to get back into it. But hold on. Xander, come on. Fine, just be over there. He doesn't like thunderstorms, and he's a complete ass. Combine those two together, you get a mess. As I was saying, that... You get my point. I'm sorry. At this point, I'm getting exasperated because of him. You're gonna be with me now. I'm sorry. This vlog is a disaster. As I was saying, you're staying here. You're staying here. You don't like it? I don't care. You're right here now. You're staying here. As I was saying, pretty much just this entire decision is just stupid. It doesn't work for personal reasons. It's stupid technically, and even in universe, I think it's a bad idea, because even if Danny decided that he was going to get rid of his powers, most, if not all, of his enemies know who he is. So if word got out that Danny Phantom was suddenly powerless and defenseless, it would paint a target on the back of him and every one of his loved ones, because now they know he's not there to defend anybody. So it's just annoying. And just for many reasons, I think it's just dumb. Just so dumb. But I've harped on this enough. I paused this vlog enough. This dog has made me stop this vlog several times because he needs personal attention in this matter. So it's already down the drain, so we might as well try to salvage whatever we can. So, as I was saying, Sam finally tells Danny off. tells him that he's being, and to be fair, and yeah, the speech isn't all that great, as she says that before when he was a ghost hunter, he was a hero helping people. Now he's just a face in the crowd, which I think part of it is that they think now life will be a bit boring now that Danny doesn't have his ghost powers. But she does make a good point about the fact that now he's leaving the world to selfish jerks in the form of Master's blasters. And Danny realizes that, yeah, even if he didn't have his powers, he does still want to help people. As such, but unfortunately, now that he doesn't have his powers, he has nothing that he can do to stop. He can't really do anything, so he's kind of, it's essentially, he made his bed and now he has to lie in it type of scenario. But to make matters even more concerning, we get the Disasteroid back, as now it's coming into Earth's atmosphere, and they say that within a week it'll hit Earth and pretty much just obliterate everything on the planet. So as such, Danny can't really do anything, but Vlad manages to get funding prepared to have a rocket sent up with Jack and the blasters up there so that they can shoot the Disasteroid and just blow it up and blow it to Kingdom Come. And also, also the various nations of the world united to try and get it to work together. And I guess fair enough, because end of the world, you kind of need, even if you have a grudge with someone, you're probably gonna need that. But unfortunately, not only does that not work, but when Jack and the blasters try shooting the Disasteroid, they hit the wrong one. And the reason they did that is because Vlad intentionally put in the wrong coordinates just to make Jack look like an idiot. Which, yeah, that's incredibly stupid. Because now you kind of screwed over the rest of the world. And I know his ego is the size of Kansas, but yeah, yeah. Even Danny calls him out on this when he first realized it, but Vlad pretty much says that he's got it back, that with Danny shamed and now no longer Danny Phantom, he's now ready to move on to Phase 2. And that phase is to pretty much take the glory for himself and secure a place for himself as the world ruler. And it's this scene that makes me realize just how much I hate Vlad in Season 3. Seasons 1 and 2, I loved episodes of him in them. They were creative, he was a perfect match for Danny. He was smart and was a perfect counterbalance to him. He was annoying, but could be funny. But Season 3, he's just annoying, and I don't like him. And just, ugh. He's not fun Vlad anymore, and I don't like it. But, anyway, Vlad's plan is just this. First off, he reveals the identity of the world, and at that point, people should realize, hey, he's a known supervillain. We should not trust him. But Vlad, even the blasters try shooting at him, to which they're knocked aside, and we never see them again. And Vlad says that he'll offer his services to the world, that he'll use his powers to make the Disasteroid intangible, so that it'll pass through the planet, if they pay him $50 billion and just name him as ruler of the planet. Which, yeah, I don't think that would work. But at this point, I guess they're weighing options. But they ultimately decide on it, and I don't know why he wants all the money if he's going to rule a planet. He's already going to have it all anyway. But all the nations pretty much make him that, and Jack and Vlad go blasting off into space, and there is one little scene I like in this thing, and there is one scene here that I like, where Jack actually is outright shocked that Vlad is Vlad Plasmus. Because again, he was under the illusion that Vlad was his old college buddy. He was his friend. What the heck? But Vlad pretty much tells him off and pretty much tells him that Jack's the reason that his life went down the hill. He stole everything from him, the love of his life. He turned him into a monster. Yada yada yada. But then Jack keeps telling him, "But you're my friend. Friend. It was an accident and everything." But Vlad continues telling him that no matter, it doesn't matter anymore. He's the ruler of the world, and now Jack's gonna watch while he steals Maddie. And Jack is veritably just kind of horrified because essentially it's like a personal betrayal, because Vlad was he thought his best friend, and now he's learned he's this monster. It's actually kind of it's short, but I kind of like it. And it becomes even especially when Vlad tries to face the asteroid, and as I said earlier, the material hurts him. The instant he touches it, it just shocks him, and he realizes that he can't phase the asteroid. At which point he realizes that now he pretty much just at this point made an empty threat. He can't save anybody, and now the planet doesn't know him Jack because he can't save them. So he pleads with Jack to help him at their friends and so forth, and Jack says, "Yeah, so yeah, I probably would help my friends, but you're not my friend." At which point he just leaves him in space, which I guess is kind of a dick move, but in all honesty, Vlad's a monster, so kind of understandable. So with Vlad out of the picture, Danny realizes that they need to find an alternate means of stopping the disasteroid. And so Danny thinks, well, if they can't phase the asteroid, what if they made the planet intangible? As such, for this plan, he thinks that maybe they should go into the ghost zone. I don't know why. Maybe he thinks they can get help from the ghost there, but unfortunately, the instant he goes in there, they start blasting at him because with the disasteroid coming, all the ghosts fled to the ghost zone. And for some reason, they're saying that if this Earth is destroyed, the ghost zone will go. And I understand both dimensions are on the flip sides of each other, but to my knowledge, the Earth is not the center of the multiverse in Danny Phantom, so I think the ghost zone would still be fine. But whatever, I didn't write this thing, so anyway, Danny gets the group gets captured by Skulker, and Danny manages to send Sam, Tucker, and Jazz, because she tagged along in there in the Spectre Speeder, on an escape pod, while Danny takes the full brunt of Vlad and of Skulker and all the ghosts that want to have a beef with Danny, and they start just pretty much blasting his ship. But when all the blasts hit Danny, instead of frying him, it instead activates something in the white streak of his hair and gives him his ghost powers back. Yeah, I don't get it either. It does not make sense. But Danny manages to disperse the crowd with his ghostly wail, which should drain his powers, but maybe he's strong enough to take it now. I don't know. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. I'll have to get back to it. Sorry, I'm thinking of something else. I'll get back to that later. But as such, Danny decides that they're just gonna screw this place. He's out, so they're gonna come back later, and so Danny comes back to the world, and so Danny is able to get a press conference assembled, I guess, and he proposes his plan of turning the planet intangible. He then has Tucker relay a plan. You're staying in this blap with me. Sorry, but you're stuck here now. As such, pretty much what they're going to do is that they're going to create a massive site that'll be able to siphon ghost energy and direct it into the planet and make it intangible. Now, personally, I think that if the disaster really does hurt ghosts, that this shouldn't affect anything, because it would probably negate all that energy, but whatever. Maybe it actually has to touch the ghost. I don't know. So, I could be wrong there, but Danny is able to make, but Danny and Tucker are able to make a case, and so the governments of the world decide to work with them, and I guess that kind of makes sense, because at this point they got to do whatever they can to save the planet. So they do manage to assemble it very quickly, I suppose, in a few days. I think something that's gonna take months, but whatever. But they also realize that they need all this excess ghost energy. And something I forgot to mention is that after Danny got rid of his ghost powers, the Fenton Ghost Pearl got fried. But thankfully he still has the Infa map, and it still directs him to where ghost portals will randomly open, so he can still use those. But as Danny is going to take the Spectre Speeder and go off to fulfill his own to try and get energy, Sam meets up with him, and we get another really nice moment where she gives him the class ring. I don't know. I thought she gave that back to him at some point, but I don't know. And she wants him to promise to return to her, as she realizes that was probably meant for her, because she realized the West was Sam. And we get a really nice moment where Danny and Sam actually realize this might be the end, and they might not see each other again, and they finally kiss, and it's adorable. I'm sorry, regardless of the faults in the show, Danny and Sam are adorable, and so Danny promises that he'll return. He takes a rocket. Yeah, it wasn't the Spectre Speeder. It was a jet. And he flies into the ghost zone and starts just grabbing as many ghosts as he can. However, before he can get back to the real world, Skulker attacks and frees all the ghosts, and they all just start ganging up on Danny. But Danny manages to make a case that if Earth goes, the ghost zone will go. Still don't know how that works. And so he manages to convince all the ghosts to contribute their power into the antenna, whatever. As such, they all go there, and so they manage to exert their energies into the antenna, and it just spreads all over the planet and does exactly what it does. It makes the planet intangible, and the disasteroid phases right through the planet, pretty much saving everybody. The ghosts the ghosts now leave and go back to the ghost zone. But after everything's over, all these people crowd around Danny, including his parents, and it turns out in all the chaos, Jazz finally told their parents the truth about Danny, because it was almost close to the end, so pretty much now than never. And so when Jazz reveals that Danny is not, and so Danny's parents are actually proud of him, because why wouldn't they be? And so, in front of an entire crowd of people, Danny reveals his identity on purpose this time. As such, people start heralding him now as the savior of the world, and Tucker somehow becomes mayor, which, no. I know he saved the world, but no. I don't buy that. Not for a second. Even if this was a good episode, would not buy that. Even if he helped save the world, that wouldn't qualify him for mayor. He's too young. It doesn't make sense. And just... what qualities would he bring to being mayor? We've seen him as a leader role. He sucks. So, I don't know. Don't buy it. Don't like it. Moving on. But they put up statues of Danny all over the world to commemorate him as a savior, and the episode ends with Danny and Sam going off and just kind of being a couple and just kind of having fun as they kind of settle in for their new lives. So, I don't like this episode. It is stupid. I already went over even with my constant interruptions with this little monster. I've already went over just the stupidity of Danny wanting to get rid of his powers, which I think it goes against everything about Danny it goes against everything with Danny. I don't think it makes sense from a character standpoint or from a story standpoint or just from a technical standpoint. I think it's dumb. The plot with the blasters is just so contrived. And even the ending it feels a little rushed and just and has really poor pacing. The humor isn't that good. It has and while there is some drama with the impending doom of the world, and there are still some good moments, the ending just doesn't feel like it should have it doesn't feel as grand as it should be. This is the literal end of the world here. You can go now if you want, puppy. And yet, it's not real. It's treated like every other problem that they've ever encountered in Danny Phantom. Like Rainstorm, I felt like that was a big problem that deserved something like this, but not this. It was a problem, yeah, but the way everyone was treating it, it felt just... oh, actually, scratch that. I'm probably... that one's probably a nitpick and maybe made it in my head, but I don't know. I feel like the pacing in the second half could have been better. And even Vlad's ego is stupid, and the blasters, even though they're the guys that got Danny out of his job, they're gone after Vlad blasts them away. Like, they're never seen again. And I know they're supposed to have drama for having Danny lose his powers, but wouldn't Danny having to save an entire planet be enough? Like, he thinks that maybe they can try... like, he tries to find ways to stop it. Maybe that could have been better. Maybe Vlad realizes the severity of what's going on, so he decides that he and Danny should try and do something like that. I think that would have been better. Like, that could have been a better plot twist. But unfortunately, that would have been cool. And then they could have gotten all the ghosts together because they realized they can't stop this alone. Like, maybe they go to the disasteroid first. It shocks them. They realize that they're kind of fucked. And then they go to Earth, realize maybe they could phase the planet. And then they have to rally all the ghosts together. That would have been cool, but it's not. Danny losing his powers is really just there to just really there for padding and not good padding, as it kind of results in nothing in the overall plot, as Danny at the end of the day still saves the world. It doesn't make sense. It's just, and even the ending does not feel earned. Like, Danny saved the world, okay. They created a machine that can siphon out ghost energy and phase through the world, yeah. Okay. I personally don't think that this would probably get the results it would, because I still think it just feels, because if I'm being completely honest here, this just feels like a Danny fandom episode. It just feels like a Danny fan episode. Yeah, Danny saving the world is great, but I think at the end of the day, everything would still go back to the way it was. It's just that now that Vlad unnecessarily revealed himself, and I think, and even then, not a lot has changed. Not a lot has changed in the grand status quo. Not a lot is aside from Danny's identity being outed and Danny and Sam now in a relationship. The only major other change is Tucker as mayor, which I still think is stupid. Otherwise, it doesn't look like a lot has changed beyond Danny getting the statue, even though he probably could have earned it several times over. But whatever, people are finicky in this series. But honestly, I think the biggest sin of this episode is just the stuff with Danny. Danny, in the first half of this, is written poorly, awfully, selfishly, and really just like him losing his powers is just supposed to give him a handicap that really doesn't factor into the story. If anything, it's just there to help Pat out as him getting his ghost powers back and then doing all this. Like, yeah, you can create a crisis and, oh, Vlad has to take all the credit and yada yada yada, blah blah blah. No. I don't like it. I don't like it, and it just serves to pad out the story. The second half, honestly, isn't that spectacular for me. It's them prepping for it, which I think is okay, but I still don't buy it. But it's just that with the first half offering not as much build-up as you would think, it feels like they should dedicate more time to seeing people reacting to the end of the world. Like, I think, like, if this is how they wanted to go, they could have written a good story with this. That Danny, they're facing the end of the world. Well, how do they deal with that? How do all the characters deal with the fact that they may end up, that everything they know and love could be dead soon? We could have had a lot of good character moments there. But we don't. We see them trying to stop it, then them trying something else. It doesn't feel like it feels like the human factor is kind of stripped out of this, which I don't like. It makes it lose weight. I think that's my biggest problem with the second half. It lacks the human factor. We don't see how people are reacting to this disaster as it goes on. It's just them trying to stop the disaster. And yeah, they are trying to stop the disaster, but wouldn't it be cool if we saw them thinking of different options, what would they do if they're faced with the end? I think that would be really cool, but they don't take advantage of it, and it could have closed the book on some stuff with that. But no, it just doesn't. And even the ending with Danny's and honestly, I don't mind it that much. I don't mind the whole outing thing, but again, it's just that as a finale, as an episode, it's bad. As a finale, it's really bad, because it's written just like another episode, and not a bad episode. And when you have a bad episode, just a standard bad episode, mixed in with a finale, it's supposed to be wrapping up a lot of plot lines and so forth. It just results in an episode that, I'm sorry to say, isn't that good. And when you have a bad episode that feels like it's trying to be grander than what it is, at the end, I'm sorry to say that you failed. This episode was bad. It was badly written, but had the characters are written dumb, at least Danny was. The story has no weight, feels like it doesn't have as much weight as it should. The plot points feel rushed. Some plot points are just forgotten, aka the blasters, after Vlad reveals himself. It's just, and while it does have some good moments, like with Jack telling Vlad up yours, or Danny and Sam finally getting into a relationship, which I like, at the end of the day, I didn't like this episode. It was just a dumb, bad episode that really had no business being the finale of this show. Which I think is really sucky, because There's still loose plot threads that need to be tied up. Like, remember back in season 2 with the Fright Night, with Vlad and the Fright Night? What deal did they make? We don't know. We know that Vlad stole the ectoskeleton, which what got blown up later. We didn't know why he stole that, but what was the deal he made with the Fright Night? I don't know. What about Valerie? Well, she appeared in one episode this season, and then just gets shoved aside later. Yeah, not even kidding. I actually kind of have more respect for her because she's still tried hunting ghosts with the blasters around, but she just got shoved aside. Literally, she was hunting a ghost. They came in, shoved her aside, and she fell into a dumpster, and her hoverboard got trashed. And that's the last we see of her, except for like one scene later as a cameo. Which, well, thanks for that. You did a good job closing the book on that character there, Butch Hartman. You did a really good job, but it's just this could have been so much better if they had just put more weight into it. If they had just taken out the whole Danny and the self-esteem thing. I think if the whole episode, actually, you know what? This would have been better if it was just them building up to the end of the world. The whole special could have been the moments taking down as the characters try to solve it, and their plans keep failing. We could have seen their reactions to everything, and it would have helped close the book on things. Maybe we could have seen Vlad throw caution to the wind because of how desperate things are getting. Just to see all these reactions, seeing all these characters actually get some closure, because this could be the last time we ever see them because they could die. That would have been a really good finale. But the first half squanders its talent by introducing this stupid subplot that does nothing but except pad out time and just write Danny bad. In the second half, it just feels like in the second half, not awful. Doesn't feel as grand as it should, and I think that's just a big problem, because this is supposed to be the finale for the show, and it's just at the end of the day a standard bad episode. And I think when you make that the finale of your show, yeah, I can understand why it's so reviled, but. And it's even more of a shame because if you want my honest thoughts on Danny Phantom, I think it's a nice show. I think it's a really fun show. Like, season 3 of the show is the worst season. But I would hesitate to call season 3 awful. Bad, maybe. But I admit it did still have some creativity. It did still have some imagination, and there was still some good moments here and there. There was an occasional good episode. Like the box house episode, while not a great episode and had its own problems, it was actually pretty cool to see the box house be competent. Seeing Danny get his ice powers, I think, was legitimately cool and actually helped grow some things. There were still some nice moments, even some bad episodes, and even last episode, Destabilized, I think, was a nice episode with Danielle. I think that was fun. But as a whole, I think the show is fun. It's not great, and I will go on record and say that when I compare this show to Ben 10, Ben 10 wins. I just loved that show as a kid, and it still holds a special place in my heart for nostalgia's sake. But I can't deny that Danny Phantom does have its strengths too. Danny as a character, when he's written well, is a lot of fun. He is written like a regular teenager, but he's got a good heart, and he's got a good heart, has room for growth, and is just all around a nice character, and it's just nice. The entourage is entertaining. The main characters are fun, and there are still a lot of interesting things. The villains are fun, and they can be very creative and very interesting. It's kind of cool that they set up a frenemy dynamic between Danny and all of his villains, because it leads to some nice banter and dialogue, and some fun plot lines, which I like. The humor, for the most part, was actually really nice and took advantage of the characters. Even when the characters were one note, you could still write a lot of good jokes with them. You could still do a lot of cool stuff. The show also did have a lot of emotional moments. As I said, some of the best material in the show was when the Fentons were bonding and seeing them grow as a family. I thought that was really good. And even the other characters, when they had their times to shine, I thought were great, save for some background characters. Thank you, Paulina and Dash. I I think another thing I appreciated was, and even some stuff I feel like some plot, and even some other plot threads I feel that I didn't appreciate as much as a kid, I could appreciate more as an adult. Like the Valerie stuff, it still did not hook me as much as I think it was supposed to, but I would appreciate it more than as an adult than I did as a kid because I could see the progression for this character. And I liked seeing that. And yeah, while she did still at the end of the day hate ghosts, at least they dedicated more time to her. And I think if they did do more, and I feel like that if the show hadn't ended, they wanted to do more. It's just that they didn't. Because I think at that point, with how bad season 3 was getting, they pretty much were told they were canceled. So I think they had. So maybe that's part of the reason why this is the way it is. They had to just kind of write a finale. So I can kind of understand that. But it could be a lot of fun. It had a lot of nice character moments. The action, while not great, was still fun to look at. The animation style was nice. I understand why this show holds a special place in a lot of people's hearts because it is. I genuinely think it's a nice show. It is fun. It is creative. It's funny. It's colorful. It's got a lot of good. It's got a lot of good humor and heart. It's got some nice drama and some nice character dynamics. It's just all around a pretty fun show. Even season 3, for all of its downs, still have some nice moments here. Still have some nice moments that I kind of would comment the show on, even if sometimes that talent got squandered. But at the end of the day, this show, I think, is fun, and I admit even with the downfalls that I've seen in the last season, this was still fun. The show was still fun to watch and go through. It was really interesting, and I like it. But as such, to kind of just see that finale, but the finale, yeah, that finale deserves all the ire it gets. It doesn't work as a finale. It doesn't really work as an episode. It's just bad, but honestly, if you haven't seen Danny Phantom yet, I would recommend giving it a shot. And it's not the best superhero cartoon out there, but it's still a lot of fun. It's still got a lot of good talent behind it. And while the third season may be lackluster at best, the first 2 seasons are still have a lot of good stuff in them, and I would recommend checking it out if just for the fun factor. So, yeah. If you're still here, if you're still watching this vlog at this point, I thank you. I know I kept having to keep pausing it to deal with my dog, but if you're still here, I applaud you. I applaud you for dealing with my low-budget stupidity as I try to do whatever I can to salvage this, to try and salvage this. Honestly, I really wish I had done this earlier. It probably would have been a lot better for everybody if I had done this earlier. But for those of you who stuck with me through the beginning of this vlog, when I first started it about a year ago with Tim and Haley, I thank you for coming in here. I thank you for continually coming back and watching this show with me if you were keeping up. Actually, I hope you were. But I'm glad that I watched this show again because while I still think while I will admit it, it probably is just a kid's show. It's still a lot of fun. It was still cool coming back to this. I liked it a lot. At the end of the day, it was just really fun, and I'm kind of glad I did this. So, yeah. Again, just if you stuck this far in the video, thank you. And if you've been following me, and for those of you who stuck with this vlog through this past year, I also thank you. So, yeah. I guess that's pretty much it for the Phantom perspectives. But again, I'm not going to be done with the vlogs. Next week, we're going to be moving on to a new vlog series. And I had intended on doing another cartoon for the next vlog series, and I still plan to do that cartoon later. But next week, I'm going to be looking at a different kind of series. one that it's one that I've grown up with. In fact, it's something that a lot of people have grown up with, and I think with some certain stuff that's happened with it recently, I think it's time that we went back and looked at the progression of this series. So, if you don't, so if you're interested in that, come back next week as we start that vlog series up, and I hope you enjoy that vlog as much as you enjoyed this. And if you didn't like this vlog in the first place, then I doubt that one's going to change your mind. So, yeah, it's coming down now. So, I guess it's time I sign off before this little guy starts raising hell again. So, thank you for watching, everybody. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I hope to see you next time. Take care. He's a monster, but I think he's adorable.